Nigeria has been grappling with insecurity for a while now. There's a long list of challenges. There's the emergence of Boko Haram terror group in the northeast from way back 2009, which have a different twist to, has added a different twist to the situation and how it's since evolved to other things. There are also other issues like kidnappings for ransom, school attacks, as well as the renewed agitation for secession by IPOB in the southeast, disrupting the peace in Africa's most populous country. Opinions are now divided as to whether the Buhari administration has largely tackled these situations and whether or not government has identified, a genuine solution to the country's security dilemma. As the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, what must the incoming president do differently to fully restore peace and safety in the country? I'm joined now by security consultant Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo, retired with 31 years of active service to his credit in the Nigerian Army. He's currently CEO at Hicks & Partners Limited. Also joining me, security consultant Dr. Kabiru Adamu, Managing Director, Beacon Consulting Limited, providing enterprise risk and security management solutions in Nigeria. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program. The police has responded categorically to political actors issuing public threats and instigating actions to stop the presidential inauguration ceremony come May 29. The IGP briefed the press yesterday. Let's listen to him.
It has been observed that some major political actors that the outcome did not favor have been issuing public threats that are directed at instigating actions to frustrate the presidential inauguration ceremony on the 29th of May. We will defend our democracy at all costs. The 29th May 2023 date for the swearing-in ceremony of the President-elect of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and indeed other inauguration ceremonies at national and state level is sacrosanct. We shall undertake this task optimally and manifestly. Anybody that stands in the way will be identified, promptly isolated, and brought to deserve justice in the overriding interests of our national security and stable political order.
We will defend our democracy at all costs, and May 29 Inauguration Day is sacrosanct. Dr. Kabiru, let's begin with how committed Nigeria's security forces have been over the years to the constitutional obligation to a seamless transition and how that has consolidated Nigeria's democracy on the continent.
Thank you so much. And like every arm of government, I think the security forces have demonstrated their commitment to a seamless transition. Actually, I don't think there is any arm of government that demonstrates that commitment better than the security sector. If you recall, at the beginning of the transition period, the Department of State Services, or rather the State Security Services, did release a statement where they highlighted their concerns regarding intelligence available to them, suggesting that there were some activity by especially politicians to derail the transition process. And at that time, they did mention that there were two indicators. One would be people, going to court, bringing up what they described as frivolous, cases, and then also instigating social upheaval in terms of protests and other street actions, and that this will culminate into the declaration of a state of emergency, and then, of course, to the truncating of the governance process in Nigeria. And then just a few days ago, the police also kind of confirmed this intelligence, quote unquote. So clearly there is a focus by the security sector in Nigeria towards ensuring a seamless transition. What has been very difficult before now is the absence of a platform or a framework for guiding security involvement within this transition activity. But the Buhari administration, I think, solved that with the passing of Executive Order 14, which led to the creation of the Transition Council. And then under that Transition Council, we have a subsector on security that is being chaired by the Office of the National Security Advisor. So that has provided a framework for the involvement of all the security agencies. Before now, when there was no transition council, it would be a directive, probably from the presidency or another arm of government, asking the security agencies to work along the line and support the transition process. We could look at the 2015 transition arrangement when, from all indications, the then government, which was a PDP government, did not expect that it was going to lose the election. So clearly there wasn't any structured arrangement towards the transition. The same thing happened before then. However, what we're seeing now is a structured approach where we're seeing, like I mentioned earlier on, a council with subcommittees, one of them chaired by the Office of the National Security Advisor, and then being supported, of course, by all the about 28 different ministries, departments.
So you're saying that we seem to have a more structured process this time. Let me quickly bring in Colonel Stan-Labo. The Military High Command also gave the exact assurance last month, saying that it will work with the police and intelligence community to deal with all threats to national security. But as far as the internal security of the nation is concerned, Colonel, the police is the lead agency. The military says it only provides assistance to civil authority and civil power. What roles do you see the military play here in this regard?
Of course, thank you very much. I foresee the military, like it is, part of its statutory role to avail required assistance to civil authority, and that is to say to the lead agency, which is the police. And the military will always be there to avail necessary support to them, especially when they appear to be overwhelmed. But given the context within which we are discussing, I'm highly impressed with the narrative I just heard from Dr. Kabiru. It's only that I always like to see a holistic picture painted, you know. It is important to also draw the attention of our listeners and those of us involved in this conversation that it is not enough for the police to just come out and, you know, of course, issue out all the threats, which of course is in order to ensure that we don't have to disrupt the process. But it is also proper to put things in proper perspective. And that is to say, if we are saying there are troubleshooters out there, frankly speaking, as a citizen, I see the federal government as being the #1 troubleshooter. You may want to ask me why. Why? Because, for Christ's sake, we have all along known that an election is coming up. At least in the last 4 years, if not the last 8 years, we did nothing in seeing how we can straighten out our laws to accommodate the possibilities of the situation we find ourselves in now. And what is that situation? A situation where after an election, we have people who feel that, look, their mandate is being stolen or whatever, and they feel they have to, of course, approach the courts. And like it is, the government and all parties involved have asked them to approach the courts. They have approached the courts, and behind them, you are preparing to swear in someone. It's like you driving home and meeting two of your kids, playing with a toy. And the aggrieved one, you ask him to please go to his mom and lay a complaint so that the mom could adjudicate over the issue. While he went, you now picked up the toy and handed it over to the other kid of yours. And
the law in question, Colonel Stan-Labo,
okay,
has been in effect since 1999, and that's been the process.
That does not make it right.
As to transition. But I'd like us to speak to the security dimension quickly because of our time. Retired Colonel, I'd like us to explore some security challenges and how the new government should respond. For instance, it's hard to tell what happened before and during the election. But a form of ceasefire was noticed, if you notice as well, with armed banditry and the incessant killings and kidnap for ransom. What did you think happened?
I didn't get you.
I said it would seem that there was some form of ceasefire before and after the election with armed banditry and incessant killings that have been reported in the past. What did you think happened?
Well, I guess they must have perceived the fact that the military will come out heavily on them if they intend to disrupt the elections. And of course, I guess also that they must have perceived the seriousness with which the nation was taking the upcoming elections. Okay, and then we must also bear in mind that we had these issues with currency and so on and so forth, which also further, slowed down. But the fact remains that a lot of nooks and crannies were found on them. I was impressed with the posture of the military.
Absolutely. Let me get Dr. Adamu's contribution here. I'm wondering if you can, draw a line between, the political season, particularly the election, and what we, recorded as to insecurity in parts of the country. With the new administration, would you say that there's a political solution to the insecurity problems vis-a-vis, the break we had in all of these challenges during the election period?
Yes, so let me start by buttressing the fact that I run a security firm, and part of what we do is to keep tabs of security incidents using our intelligence platform. So we know that in January, there was a reduction in security incidents. Same thing happened in February, but by March, what we recorded was almost a summation of the January and February incidents put together. However, by April, we saw a reduction. So clearly, there was an increase at the end of the elections in March, and then coming into the transition period, we're seeing a reduction. Suffice to say that the incoming administration is going to inherit a security challenge that it should deal with. And we know that it has presented to us a manifesto called the Renewed Hope. Now, in that manifesto, there is a 7-point agenda listed in that manifesto as what it plans to do to address the security challenge. All of them very noble. I'll mention a few of them: attempting to review the military doctrine, attempting to enhance the capacity of the police, introducing technology, increasing the number of security personnel, and things like that. All of these are very noble. But there are two things that I think are missing and that I would urge the new incoming administration to strongly look at them. That is an improved security sector reform. We have a very convoluted security sector that, frankly, does not abide by the requirements and rudiments of our democratic aspiration. So I think there is a need to pursue a security sector reform, holistic one that looks at all the 29 ministries, departments, and agencies in security and see which ones are overlapping, why we're not having the 3 C's of security: coordination, cooperation, and collaboration, and then make the necessary changes to allow that. Like I said, we've got 29 of them, but yet we're not happy with their function. So something is wrong there. Now, the second thing is security sector governance, which is the glue that would bring all of these 29 together to function, in a unified manner and to achieve Section 14, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Currently, there are about 7 coordinating elements within the security sector. All of these coordinating elements, sadly, are not accountable to the Nigerian people. And I think that is what we need to change. How do we enhance their accountability element, both in terms of operational accountability as well as financial accountability? I'm hoping that if these two things are done, the incoming administration will be able to beat its chest after 1 year to say we've been able to solve this seemingly intractable problem of insecurity in Nigeria.
For secession in the southeast and the Monday sit-at-homes, there have been calls for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, but the Buhari administration, has decided to see the court cases through. How critical would you say is the incoming administration's decision on Nnamdi Kanu to the security situation in the southeast?
Absolutely critical. So each situation would need to be picked up and analyzed on its merit what are the root causes of the Southeast, the dynamics behind the security challenges in the Southeast. You've just mentioned one of them, the activities of the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, his incarceration, the inability of government to prosecute him over this period, the fact that he's been released on bail, and yet the government has not complied with that court order. So all of these things would need to be factored in, an analysis be conducted, and then at the bottom of all of this, we must respect the law.
Okay.
Once we do that, then I think we'll be able to reduce the kind of grievances. At the root of the Southeast crisis is grievances. How do we address that grievances? How do we reduce it? It will be the way to go.
Okay, that question was actually for Cornell, so I'll be back with you, Dr. Kabiru, shortly. Let me get your opinion on this, Cornell. Particularly, do you think that Nnamdi Kanu still provides the kind of leadership in the Southeast in a way that threatens security? And how do you think the incoming administration should deal with this?
Thank you. Frankly speaking, I don't think he is still as dangerous as we all think he is. If anything, I may say we are enhancing on his relevance, on his popularity, and what have you, by further incarceration. Can we think of some other means in handling this issue? And by that I mean, can we sit down to have a talk with him? When I mean we now, I'm referring to the incoming administration, I mean the government. Can they consider that option of sitting down to discuss and have a chat with him over what the issues are and see how an amicable understanding could be reached? I don't think further incarceration can really give us the sort of result we would want. If anything, it would injure a lot of other innocent people in the East who ordinarily wouldn't have even taken any interest in what is ongoing. I think we should look at this other option. Okay, and if I may just chip in this, concerning the security sector reforms which Dr. Kabiru talked about, I think he missed out this. It is important that in that wholesome reforms, emphasis is also placed on monitoring and evaluation. It seems to be missing so much in what is happening. Look at all, for instance, we'll talk about all the expenses in the defense today, or we'll talk about all what has gone on in the defense, yet there are still issues. Because there would be issues, because of course, we have not taken our monitoring and evaluation very serious. It is important we take this component of whatever reforms that will be ongoing seriously. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Kabiru, the incoming president has also talked about how he intends to mobilize all assets within his national power to secure Nigeria. He talked about, the possibility of coming up with a security trust fund. I mean, it boils down to pumping more resources into security. We've seen that play out in the past years. Is there some other things he needs to add to that to make it really work?
Well, we've talked about those two things, and they kind of cover virtually everything, the security sector reform and then security sector governance. The challenge, if you don't do this, honestly, it will be tantamount to using a basket to fetch water. No matter how much you think into the security sector, if you don't, correct the structural imbalances and leakages within the system itself, that money would be frittering away. Sadly, with the benefit of hindsight, we think that's one of the things that affected the Buhari administration. So I think the incoming administration should learn from that and ensure that it blocks those leakages. In doing this, the role of the parliament is absolutely important. We run democracy, there is checks and balances. The capacity of the parliament to exercise, especially oversight rules on the security sector, is absolutely important. We borrowed our democracy from the US, and you can see clearly how the US Congress, as an example, plays that oversight role on the security sector. So I think there is a need for us as Nigerians to also place some focus on the parliament and their role. The 10th Assembly should look closely at this oversight function. What do I mean? When the chairmen of the various committees that plays that oversight role on the security sector, when they are being appointed, they should be individuals that have the capacity. They are staff should also be part of the capacity for this oversight function.
Absolutely.
So again, it is a whole of government, just like the incoming administration have mentioned. But on our own as citizens and the media, we should also place some emphasis in the kind of reporting and focus that we give the parliament, so that we encourage it to play that role.
We're coasting home now. Colonel Hassan, Stan-Labo, if you can do this in just 60 seconds, you know, the Constitution puts the responsibility of security and welfare solely on government. But what role do you see the people play in assisting the incoming administration? In 1 minute, sir.
On security and welfare, you said?
Exactly, on security issues.
Okay. First and foremost, I expect that citizens should be able to play all the supportive roles we expect to see from citizens, even from the very basic see something, do something, you know, to such roles as lending necessary support. Look, this is our country. We have no other country. Fine, we have elected governments out there, or people whom we've elected into government. But we must support them to succeed also, because their failure automatically is our failure. Absolutely. Their success is our success. Fine, we may mouth-whip ourselves, but eventually the point remains that we must ensure that governments, you know, are able to succeed so that we can move our society forward. There are lots of gaps here and there because as individuals, we might have our grievances here and there, but all the same, you must be supported. It's a family thing. And let's see how we move on.
Absolutely. Security consultant, Colonel Hassan Stan-Labo, retired, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. Thank you, gentlemen, for your contribution on the countdown.
Thank you for having us.
Well, that's our packet today. Join me again same time tomorrow for another edition. I am Nifemi Oguntoye.